All right, looks like we are live. So let me get this out of the way right off the bat. Doesn't look like anybody's joined yet, but if you are joining this and you see the video go dead for some reason or whatever, I've been having some problems with YouTube live streaming. It just freezes up sometimes. I will restart it and I'll get back in and get going again. So don't abandon me just because the video seems to cut off. It's 7 o'clock Central right now. Usually go for about an hour till about 8 o'clock Central. So you should expect about an hour long live broadcast out of this. So if it's shorter than that, look for where I picked it back up. Hopefully that makes sense. Let me get all set up here, let some people join, and we will get going here. All right, looks like I'm early tonight. Nobody's here. All right, well, I feel like I'm talking to nobody, but generally, if you're on kind of session, so, just I let the chat kind of drive my broadcast. We talk about whatever you guys want to talk about, and that's pretty much how it goes. We got somebody in here, but nobody's talking yet. So hello, whoever is hiding there in the background. Let me expand this a little bit, so hopefully I can keep up with the chat. All right, somebody is hiding from me. I don't know who's in here yet. We'll give it just a minute, let some people join. I guess this just tells me going forward, I need to probably have something prepared to talk about until everybody joins, instead of just sitting here and kind of rambling and, waiting for everybody to get in here. All right, who we got in here? Beef for dinner. Hey, how are you? Good to see you. Glad you made it. Who else we got? 4 people in here, but nobody's talking yet. Let's see, do I have anything exciting to talk about this week? Hello from Wisconsin, that is Timothy. Hey, Timothy, how are you? From southwest Missouri here. Hope, you guys getting snow up there in Wisconsin? I bet you are. Right here, it's actually pretty nice out today. We had a frost warning last night, another frost warning tonight, but so far it's a pretty nice day out right now. All right, beef for dinner. What's no? All right, let's see. Are we back on? Respond to me. Let me know if you can hear me. Okay. All right, I think we're back. I think we're back and going. Okay. So Timothy, you got 11 inches of snow over the weekend. Good grief, man. One more reason I'm glad to live in southwest Missouri. I think we're done with the snow for the season. Don't know for sure. It could still happen. It snowed last Sunday, but it wasn't any accumulation. It was just a dusting. Yeah, it's I can't imagine 11 more inches of snow this time of year. All right, beef for dinner. Let's see what you're saying. Oh, Pierre. Hopefully I'm pronouncing Pierre, right? Okay. Hello to you, Pierre. Glad to see you. All right, what are we seeing here? Beef for dinner. You said, do you leave them on all day, and what do you use for lights? Okay, well, the outside hutches, they're outside. So I don't leave the lights on all day because they got sunlight lighting their hutches all day long. I let them come on at dusk, and then they stay on for a couple hours. About the time I go to bed, I turn them off, and then whenever I get up in the morning and go back out, it's usually about 5:45, 6 o'clock roughly. The sun's not quite up. Turn the lights back on, and I leave them on, and then I turn them off. Once the sun's up fully. Hopefully that makes sense. So that's kind of the process I use for it. Right now I'm using solar lights. They're just solar shed lights. I am working with a company in China to try to develop a new light that I'll be able to sell because I think I've got a great idea for a light that would work out perfect for backyard chicken coops and quail hutches, and there's nothing like it on the market I've been able to find, so I just decided to create it myself, and hopefully that'll be out. It'll probably be fall sometime before that's out. I've got some samples coming in the next week or two to test out, see how they work, maybe make changes to go from there. So anyway, stay tuned. And whenever that becomes available, I'll make sure I let you guys know about that. Excuse me. All right, what else we got going on with snow in Wisconsin? I imagine you guys are getting pretty antsy for spring up there. All right, Timothy, what are you saying here? For our automatic quail waters, what do you use, or do you keep them from getting algae green in the hot part of summer? Oh, I don't worry about it too much. A little bit of algae doesn't hurt anything. The biggest thing you can do is keep them out of the sun, keep them out of the light, which you should be doing anyway, just to keep it cool because you don't want it to get super hot. You put those put water hoses in the sun, and they're going to get really really hot, and you don't want that to happen. So I would I keep them in the shade as much as I can. That kind of keeps the algae down, and I just don't worry about it too much. Other than that, if they get some algae in them, no big deal. Clean them out at the end of the season, and they're fine. So a little bit of algae never hurt anything. Same thing for my rabbits. Algae is not going to hurt them at all, so I don't worry about it. You can add like some apple cider vinegar or some of those kinds of things, and just a little bit, like a 5-gallon bucket, just a glug, of apple cider vinegar. That will help minimize the algae, and it's actually good for your. I don't know. Questioning whether it's good for your animals or not. There's some sources that say yes, it is good, but they also kind of make some really extravagant claims on it, and it's not magical for sure. But there are some sources that actually say it may be bad for your birds in the summer, in the heat of summer, because it does throw off their body's natural. I'm not a scientist; I can't explain it very well, but it could cause more problems with dehydration in the long run. So you may not want to do that. But the biggest thing is keep it out of the sun. So if you have clear tubing or something like that. You might wrap it with, some, brown paper bag, something, whatever, just to keep the sunlight off of it, and that'll help keep the algae growth down. All right, Tiffany wants to know, how do you package your rabbits for the freezer? I have a Food Saver vacuum sealer, and that's what I use, but it's on the fritz right now, so I really need to buy another one, or, but I like the vacuum sealers quite a bit. It gets a little bit pricey, so I'm always on the lookout for something, maybe new, a little bit better, but that's what I've been using so far. All right, let's see. And that's it so far on the questions. It's kind of slow tonight, huh? From Algeria. Well, hey there. Welcome, Bahad Boy. Welcome to the live broadcast. Glad you could join us all the way from Algeria. All right, I guess, like I said, this is, usually the chat's going pretty fast, and I'm having a hard time keeping up with it, but tonight it's a little bit slow. I probably should prepare some things going forward for these situations whenever the chat is slow, so I have something to talk about. Timothy wants to know, have I ever tried to grow fodder? I've never tried to grow fodder for my animals. I know how to do it. I've grown all kinds of things, and fodder wouldn't be that difficult to grow. But I've never personally grown it for my animals. I do find that it's just a little bit of extra work. I just buy commercial feed. I don't keep that many rabbits. When I do have litters of rabbits, I go through I go through a little bit more feed than normal, but for the most part, it's not that many. And what you will notice if you're feeding your rabbits on fodder systems only, that they will tend to grow out just a little bit slower. That's not necessarily a bad thing, just as long as you're prepared for that. But no, I personally... I don't think anything bad with it. There's nothing wrong with it. It's just not my personal, I just don't personally do it. I find it's a little bit of extra work. I work a 40-hour-a-week job, at least 40 hours. It's usually more than that. And I don't want to put in the extra time to having to, go through the fodder system every day. It's not that much extra work, but it is extra work. And I'm looking to cut down on all the extra work that I have to do, not increase it. Plus, situations like next week I'll be out of town, which reminds me, I will be in Dominican Republic next week for work. So I may or may not get a live broadcast shot. I'm going to try, but if you guys have been following for a while, you know that never seems to work out. But hopefully this will be different. I'll be able to shoot live broadcasts from Dominican Republic next Thursday. We'll see, but just in case, let you know, I may not get on next Thursday. We'll do my best. But my point to all that is, like next week when I'm out of town for work, leaving my wife to have to care for all that kind of stuff, it's just much easier to just take a couple pellets and dump them in the feeder and not worry about going through the fodder system and getting all that stuff ready. So that's really why I don't grow any fodder and why I haven't done it. I don't know if you guys can hear. I've got the baby birds in the brooder box right here, and they are they're getting noisy. They're actually ready. They're big enough. They're probably, they're a little over 2 weeks old right now. So they're ready to go out to the grow-out pens. But, man, it's been cold. It's been dropping down into the 30s at night. low 30s, so I really like to give them another week. If they don't go out this weekend, I'm going to have to set up some cages in the garage for them and get them out there because I don't want to leave my wife with the brooder box to have to clean out every day. They're starting to get pretty messy right now. All right, what's this? Machete Freddy, huh? Grapefruit seed extract can be used for worms, intestinal parasites. Is this only when you see signs or more of a preventative, give once a month or something? You could do it however you wanted to, I guess. I'm trying to think. Grapefruit seed for quail or rabbit. Pumpkin seed kind of works the same way, I think. But I don't remember if there's any concerns with toxicity with citrus with birds. I don't think there is. I think it'd be fine. Me personally, I don't worry about any kind of preventative treatment. Only if I see signs of something, and I've never had a problem with worms in my rabbits or my quail. So I just don't really worry too much about preventative care on that. I treat things as they occur as opposed to preventing, within reason. I try to keep their cages clean, those kinds of things, preventative. But I don't like to give anything, and grapefruit seed extract is more natural, but still, I don't like to really give any kind of medication to my birds or my rabbits as a preventative measure. I'd rather just treat things as they come up. But that's just my personal opinion on that as well. All right, Tiffany wants to know, how often do you eat your rabbit and quail? As often as I can. I run out of them pretty quick. And I had a really rough breeding season with rabbits. I had to go through a couple of rabbits, which I may end up having to go through a couple more. I may end up having to get another one. I'll tell that story here in a minute. But so I ran out of rabbit in the freezer, and I haven't had any for, oh goodness, it's been almost 6 months now, I think. But we eat quail. Well, we ran out of quail too, and it's been probably about a month since we ran out of quail. But I've got some in the brooder box right now that 2 weeks old. So here in about 6 weeks, they'll be ready to butcher, and quail will be back on the menu again. And we'll be starting another batch here probably next week, because I'll be gone next week. Well, not next week, the week after, because I'll be gone next week. So I'll probably save eggs the week after and then start incubating them again. And I'll just have a fairly constant rotation of the quail at that point. I've got rabbits in the out in the grow out pens right now that are real close to 6 weeks old, but they're growing out a little slow. So it's probably going to take them another 2 or 3 weeks at least before they get up to size. So then we'll have rabbit back on the menu again. All right. Beef for Dinner says, my wife's doe had one baby. Then 2 days later, the same doe gave birth to 9 more babies. All 9 babies were dead. Any idea what happened? It sounds like a complication during pregnancy of some kind. Obviously, you knew that already, I guess. As far as why, boy, anybody's guess. It could be like some kind of miscarriage or something. I don't know, honestly. That's a weird situation. I wouldn't stress too much about it. I might try again. If she has that problem again, then I would worry about it as being a kind of consistent thing, and then maybe look at getting a replacement rabbit if you're, if that's what you want to do, is get, rabbits bred. Sorry I can't give you a more specific answer, but good grief, it could be any number of things that can happen like that. It's probably just a fluke, especially if she's a first-time mom. Probably just a fluke of some time. Try again. Don't stress too much about it. All right, well, we got a lull in the chat right now, so I will tell you the story about my why I'm getting another rabbit. If you guys have been following my channel, boy, I had the hardest time breeding this season. Had a buck age out, got a new buck, bred him to my silver fox doe, and then she died before she gave birth. So I ended up having to replace her. Got a New Zealand red, beautiful rabbit, fantastic mother. She had 8 babies, took care of them great. Like I said, the babies are growing out a little slow. They're like 6 weeks old, and they're not nowhere near the 5-pound mark yet. So a little disappointed in that aspect, but that's not the biggest reason I'm getting rid of her. Biggest reason I'm going to get rid of that rabbit is because she is vicious. She has turned into the most aggressive rabbit I have ever seen. And I thought maybe taking her, usually you see an aggressive rabbit, a lot of times when they have babies, they calm down. It's been the other way around with her. So I thought maybe taking her babies off of her once we weaned them, which we just did this last week. I'm still going to give her a little time and see. I thought maybe that would help her calm down, but boy, it hasn't so far. You cannot stick your hand in that cage, and she just jumps on you and just, after you. So I'm probably going to have to get rid of her. I just don't deal with aggressive rabbits. Not worth it, in my opinion. Find another doe. It's a little bit easier to handle. My other doe which is my Flemish New Zealand cross, gray or silver doe. First time I bred her, she had 2 babies, both died. First time mom, okay, no big deal. Tried again, 2 babies the second time. But she's taking care of them. She's doing a great job. She's a fantastic mother. And they are the cutest little baby bunnies, just adorable. And they're actually pretty good size. They're only, 2 weeks old now, I guess. And they're, about that big right now. So they're pretty good sized rabbits. I may try to breed her one more time. All right, I got another comment in here. Machete Freddy again said the second kit got stuck maybe. Oh yeah, referring to beef for dinner. That is a possibility. It's strange for that to go a whole. I think my dog wants in here. He hears me talking. He's banging on the door. Got distracted there. What did you say? 2 days later. I don't know. That's not out of the realm of possibilities. It is a little bit weird for them to go for that long without having the rest of their babies, if that's the case. But I don't know. I mean, that's probably as reasonable of an explanation as anything else. So thank you, Machete Freddy, for responding to that. All right, Tiffany Vanderby, I'm not sure if I got that right. We'll just call you Tiffany. Tiffany says, what got you started with raising, with quail, rabbits, and gardening? Well, gardening's always been something that I've done, and it's always been part of my family. My grandfather grew a huge garden. He lived about 3 blocks from me. So when I was a kid, my mom was a single mom. She worked. We spent a lot of time with my grandparents, and he was a big gardener. So I grew up gardening with him, just always having a garden. Every spring, we were out there tilling the garden, and I don't even till anymore. I go into a no-till garden now. But we were planting tomatoes and onions, all kinds of things, and harvesting them all summer long. So I grew up with fresh vegetables from the garden. And, once you have fresh vegetables like that, it's really hard to go to store-bought. So that's one of the reasons I've always gardened. As far as raising animals, I've pretty much always raised animals as well. I did have rabbits when I was a kid, but they weren't meat rabbits. We hunted when I was a kid, and we ate rabbit, but it was rabbit that we hunted. I started raising rabbits and quail because I live in town, and I really wanted a source of fresh eggs, but I didn't really want to invest in a huge area for my chickens. 4 chickens, and I could only have so many chickens, and also couldn't have roosters, and I wanted to be able to have meat coming, fresh meat coming that way. So I, started looking into it, found quail, and thought, man, this is perfect for somebody that lives in the city. So I got into quail. Rabbits, it just kind of, tell you what got me started on it again was I got a divorce. This has been several years ago. My ex-wife, was my wife at the time, decided she didn't want to be a Christian anymore, went out and found somebody else, got a divorce, so I figured, you know what, I'm living by myself, I can do whatever I want. She never would have allowed meat rabbits to be kept, so that was the first thing I thought is, I'm going to raise my own meat, and I'm going to raise meat rabbits. So I just got into meat rabbits. There are almost the perfect, I don't want to say homesteading, but perfect little meat source for, families. They're just so fast to reproduce. They grow out incredibly fast. You keep them in such a small space. They don't make a lot of noise. It's just perfect for somebody that lives in town like me. I've got a little rabbit shed right along the side of the house. If I didn't tell my neighbors, they probably wouldn't even know I had rabbits. It's just so easy. It's just the way to go. So that's what got me going on them. All right, Daniel's family says, hey, Chris, haven't been on the live chat in a while. Sorry. Just wanted to say, great work, man. I have recommended your videos to all my friends. Well, thank you so much. I appreciate that. And thanks for joining us for the live broadcast tonight. All right, Timothy, it might be a slow night for chat, but your live chats have become the highlight of my week. Well, thank you. I appreciate that. It says your videos have helped my wife. My wife and I have some great quality time together watching your video. Well, thank you so much. I appreciate that. I'm humbled to think that you're going to spend your quality time together watching my video and any of my videos. But I appreciate that, and I'm so glad to hear that you enjoy it, that it's working well for you. Machete says, how old should a buck be before he will breed? Usually about 6 months is the standard kind of, for does or bucks. About 6 months old is what you want them to be. Bucks can probably go into breeding just a little bit younger than that sometimes. Depends a little bit on the breed. Daniel's family is saying at least 8 months. That's not a bad recommendation, honestly. 6 months is kind of the bare minimum in most of the cases. waiting a little bit longer, especially for your does, is probably a little bit better. All right, what else is going on this week? The weather. The garden. Let's talk about the garden for a minute. If you guys watch my videos, you know I left the covers off the garden, the little low tunnels, and we got, it froze. It froze hard. You may have seen my video on that a couple weeks ago about a big mistake I made. But surprisingly, a lot of that stuff's still going. The Brussels sprouts seem to be shot. I don't think they're going to make it. The cauliflower and the broccoli, it seemed to survive fairly well. Most of the cabbage, I lost 1 or 2 plants. Most of the cabbage seems to be doing okay. We'll see if it does okay. And any of the spinach I had out there, it's doing fine. And the romaine lettuce is doing great. So no problems with that. I couldn't believe it made it through. We've had lots of hard freeze, and I haven't covered it up at all. Like I said, we had snow last weekend. So, it snowed on it. It wasn't a huge amount of accumulation, but it did snow. And all that stuff seemed to do okay and make it through. May not be the best, growing I've ever had of those kinds of crops. But, they are cool season crops. So who knows? My big concern now is that in southwest Missouri, it seems to be like, you've got winter. Like, we can't get away from winter. It's ridiculous. We had a frost last night. We have another frost tonight. It's going to get down to about 34 degrees tonight. And then back up to 70 tomorrow, probably. Actually, I think it's supposed to be like 65 tomorrow. But then it seems like once we get past that, then it just hits summer and it's like 100 degrees out. And those kinds of crops, they really struggle in the heat, especially like your broccoli and your cauliflower and stuff. They don't do well in the heat. So I'm not sure if I'll be able to grow them all the way out and get a good harvest out of them, because I'm afraid it's going to get so hot on them. But we'll see. It's worth a try. I do have tomatoes and peppers and things going. Not behind. Well, I've got a couple of peppers behind me. You can't see that. It's too bright, isn't it? But there's a couple of peppers up there and a ton of basil. Boy, I got so much basil, it's ridiculous. So those will go out in a couple of weeks, probably the second week of May, once we're past all the threat of frost. And then we'll see how they do. All right, let's see. Daniel's family says, I tried to hatch quail and lost them all. I don't know what I did wrong, but I lost 12 quail. They hatched, I put them in the brooder, and they died within a week. Any idea what I did wrong? Did you have a heat source on them? What heat source did you have on them? How warm was it? Were they all just huddled under the heat source? 9 times out of 10, if they're dying in the brooder box, it's due to heat, lack of heat. Or too much heat can kill them too, but usually it's a lack of heat, or if they get wet. So if you have like a big open water where they can get in, a lot of times they'll get in there, they'll get themselves all wet, and then they can't warm up, they just chill, and that can cause the problems too. It's usually related to temperature. So that would be my first guess. It's hard for me to troubleshoot it too much without being able to see your setup or know a little bit more about it. But that's what I would look at first. All right, Brandon says, hey Chris, hello from PA. I have learned so much watching your videos. I really appreciate your time to teach us all. Well, thank you so much. I'm so glad that you find my videos helpful and let me know about it. I appreciate that. Hey, Games. I Love Games is on. Hey there. And Daniel says, thanks a lot. No problem. Hopefully that answers your question. I'm not sure if I got it answered well enough or not. If you need more, leave me some comments and I'll do my best to respond to them there. So MJ Homestead says, hi, just had babies today. Well, congratulations. I don't know. I may get one more litter. I don't think I'm going to breed my New Zealand Red again. Like I said, she's just... oh my gosh, she's so incredibly aggressive. It's ridiculous. So I don't think I'll breed her again. I just don't want to deal with it. But I might breed my Flemish New Zealand cross one more time before summer hits, see if she has a bigger litter. I sure hope she does, because boy, she does a great job taking care of them. They're growing out pretty fast. They're adorable. Just everything you want in a rabbit. It's just, I can't deal with just 2 rabbits per litter. So we'll see how she does. Oh, you only had 4 and one dead. Well, MJ, if it's a brand new, it's a first-time mom, that's not really that unusual for first-time moms. Usually litter size is a little bit bigger than that, but for them to have 1 dead, that's not that unusual. Same situation I'm in right now with only 2 out of my litter, only having 2. I'm going to try again. I've tried twice. She's only had 2 both times. We'll see if she does it a 3rd time. If she only has 2 a 3rd time, I'm going to have to get rid of her probably. Previous owner said she only had 4 on her last litter. Oh, gotcha. And how many chances do you give them to have bigger litters? Yeah, I think that's pretty much what we just. I would give her 3 chances at the most. If she's a good mom, give her 3 chances. If she's not a good mom, if she's not taking care of them, then I don't know if I'd give her any more. Hopefully it's better. And you might see if she came already bred, you might try to breed her to your buck as well, because it could have been the buck that was causing the problems with it. It may not have been the doe. Just a couple thoughts. All right, I Love Games says, I threw my females in a cage together and they started to bite each other. Is this normal? They were fine before. Yeah, that's pretty normal. Females get very territorial, so it's really, especially if one female was in the cage already and you add another one to it, any rabbit, female or male, they're usually going to attack that other rabbit because they get very territorial. That's why you never take a buck to the doe's cage whenever you're breeding her. You always take the doe to the buck's cage. So yeah, it's pretty normal for females to get aggressive when there's another rabbit in their area. And honestly, I talked about my New Zealand red being real aggressive. That's probably the issue. She's just very territorial. When you go into her territory, she's trying to defend it. I might see if I can maybe get her out of there, put her in another cage, and see if maybe that'll calm her down. But if it does, I can't go with switching her cage out every couple of months to calm her down. So we'll see. I don't know how that's going to go. All right, Brandon says, I have a question for you. I have one pen with 4 hens and a rooster. They all lay eggs every day. Even your rooster? No, I'm kidding. They all lay eggs every day. The other pen has 1 rooster and 3 hens. Only one of those hens is laying an egg a day. Oh boy, I deal with those kinds of things too. If who knows what's causing it? If you've got light on them, first thing is always light. 14 hours a day of light. If you've recently moved them, that can cause them to shut down egg laying, and it usually takes a couple of weeks after they get into a new environment before they start laying, or at least laying regularly. So you might get like an egg, 2 or 3 eggs the next day, 1 egg the next day, 2 eggs the next day, maybe no eggs for a day or 2, and then they'll kind of get into a rhythm and they'll start laying again every day. So that could be the cause of it right there. If you've introduced new birds, so like they're all new to each other, that's a little bit of a stress factor, and that could be causing some of the issues with them. They'll get over it and they'll start laying again. Don't worry about it. Usually what I find about the time you start thinking, oh my gosh, these birds are never going to start laying, and you ask somebody like me, boom, they start laying. I don't know why. It just seems like they're just waiting to show you, to laugh at you about it or something like that. But my jumbos took a little while to get laying this spring. Whenever I put the lights on them, and they got up to 14 hours a day again. The silvers started laying pretty quick, or a lot quicker anyway, and I was getting a lot more eggs out of the silvers. Now the jumbos, it took them about 3 weeks. They got on a pretty regular cycle, and now they're laying like I've got more eggs than I can eat. But it took a little while to get going, so just be patient with them. Give them a little time. They'll probably pick it up. All right, Kay Aldridge says, I have a week-old quail that's eating the other's feathers. I hid him from the others for 2 days and upped his protein good, but he's still doing it. Any ideas? A week-old quail that's eating the other's feathers. It's usually a protein, like exactly what you did, upping their protein a little bit. I don't know what protein level you're using. I try to get anywhere from 27 to 30% protein. I've had really good luck with. That's what I feed all my birds. It's a game bird starter. They eat it from the time they go in the brooder box forever. That's all they have. And I don't have those problems with it. I don't know. I think if it was me and he kept that behavior up and he's the only one doing it, then I would probably call him out. I would just grow him up to butcher size and eat him for dinner. I don't want to pass those genes on. It could be just an aggression gene in him. But that's just a guess on that, so I'm not sure. All right, Adams TV, the most popular question, right? My quail are not laying. What do I do? I kind of talked about that already, but the first thing is always light. 14 hours a day of light, they need light. So if they're outside, depending on where you live, you're probably not getting 14 hours a day of light right now. You're probably getting somewhere like around 12 and a half, maybe. So you need to add some kind of light source and up their light by a couple hours a day. Now, you don't want to leave the light on 24 hours a day. That can cause aggression in your birds as well because they do need some darkness. They do need to sleep. But add some kind of light that's going to give them, and it doesn't have to be super bright, but you do need to add a light and extend the daylight by a couple of hours, and that should get them laying. It may take a couple of weeks, but they'll get going. All right, Daniel's family says, I breed my silver fox and my Flemish mix. I just had 8 babies last Monday. Very blessed. Very blessed indeed. Congratulations. your silver fox, and a Flemish mix. Hopefully they do really, really well. I've had mixed results with mixed results. Mixed results with mixed breed rabbits. Generally speaking, in fact, I shot video on that a while back. Generally speaking, I find, especially like Flemish mixes, they don't necessarily produce small litters, but man, their babies tend to grow out incredibly slow. Now, this doe here may be an exception. I'm only 2 weeks in, and her babies look like they're pretty good size for 2-week-old bunnies. Of course, they're only two. Maybe different if there were more of those. But we'll watch and see. Hopefully you have a different result. Hopefully yours grow out real quick too. Or if you're fine waiting like 12 weeks instead of butchering at 8 weeks, who cares? You know? All right. Beef for Dinner says, will quail lay without a rooster? Yeah, they'll lay without a rooster. You only need a rooster if you want fertile eggs. If you're going to incubate and hatch them out, that's when you need a rooster. But as far as just to get them to lay, yeah, you don't need a rooster for that. All right, MJ Homestead says, how long do you wait to rebreed a rabbit after she has had a litter? I heard that you wait until you wean the babies. I do typically wait until I wean the babies. Like what I do is I generally give her, I wean the babies, I give her a week, and then I breed her. Or sometimes I'll wean the babies at 6 weeks, 6.5 weeks, and then just go ahead and breed her that next weekend. But yeah, I wait until I wean the rabbits. You could do it sooner than that if you wanted to. There's plenty of people that rebreed the rabbits at like 4 weeks. So they had a baby. When those babies are 4 weeks old, they rebreed the rabbit, and that gives them 2 weeks before those babies are going to be weaned and in their own cage. She's got 2 weeks by herself before she has her next litter. So you could do that. It is pretty intensive breeding. You're going to need to make sure you have a pretty good feed for her, keep her in good shape. And you're probably going to wear her out a lot quicker. So you may not get 3 years out of her. You may only get 2 or something like that. But it can be done. All right, Tiffany says, how many quail do you keep in a cage? I have a 3x4 cage with 16 quail currently. Just started getting eggs. 3x4 and 16 quail. That's not overcrowded. That's decent. General guideline is about 1 bird per square foot in a wire cage. In a wire bottom cage. If you're going with like a solid bottom cage, you need to go way lower than that, or it's going to be just incredibly filthy. You're going to have a hard time keeping up with cleaning it. But in a wire cage, 3x4 would be 12 square feet. You got 16 birds in there. I would say that's not overcrowded, but that's probably about the max you want to put in that size of a cage. I wouldn't go much more than that. Okay, Maverick says, can you ship eggs? Please, I really want quails. Nothing in my area. Unfortunately, I'm not set up to ship eggs. I'm not NPIP certified. I'm just not set up for it. I don't produce those kinds of numbers. But I always recommend Kansas City Quail Farms. Great selection of birds. Also, if I don't know, we've got a viewer here that runs Chicky Poppins. I don't know. I can't remember his username. But you might look that up because I think he sells quail. I know he sells other kinds of birds. I'm not sure if he ships quail eggs or not, but you could check and see. But again, I've ordered from Kansas City Quail Farms and done very well with their birds. There's Armed American. There we go. Chicky Poppins. Yeah, check their eBay store out. They'll help you out. All right, MJ Homestead says, wow, not sure I'd do that. Poor thing. I'm not sure I'd do that. What are we talking about? Oh, talking about rebreeding rabbits that quickly. Yeah, I don't want to rebreed them that quickly myself either. It's to me, it's just a little too much. I want my rabbits are meat rabbits. If I get rid of this New Zealand Red, I can't give her to anybody. She's just too mean, too aggressive. She'll end up biting somebody, so she wouldn't make a good pet. I'll end up making sausage out of her. But I want them to be comfortable. I want them to have a happy life, and that's another reason why I feel like I probably need to cull her rather than give her away. If she's aggressive like that, she's obviously not comfortable. She's incredibly nervous. Something's wrong. She's not enjoying life. So I don't really want to keep her in that kind of a situation. So I think the humane thing to do is to cull her, and I'm not going to let it waste. So we'll make sausage out of her because she's too big to be a fryer or anything like that. All right, Brandon says, have 24 quail eggs in the incubator. First time incubating. Tomorrow is day 17. Hoping to come back from work and seeing some hatching starting. I bet you do. I wouldn't be surprised if you don't come back from work and hatching has already begun. I mean, you've already got birds in the incubator chirping because That's how I typically find it. Is I go try to catch when they start to hatch, and I just come in and there's birds chirping. They're in the incubator. So day 17, if your temperatures are right, you should have birds hatching out maybe tomorrow at the latest. All right, MJ says, thanks for your info. I was hoping you would be on today so I could ask these questions. First time mom here. Yeah, first times can be a little bit stressful. Don't stress out too much. The rabbit knows what she's doing for the most part. So if she's a decent mom, and if she's a decent mom, there's probably not a whole lot you can do or want to do. I mean, it's a lot of work trying to take care of baby rabbits. So don't stress too much. Let her do her thing. She's going to take care of the babies probably just fine. Go out and check on them every once in a while. Handle them if you want to. Shouldn't bother her at all. And yeah, they're going to do just fine. So congratulations on your litter, though. All right, Adam says, My Shire Quail Farm, there we go. My Shire Quail Farm sells eggs and will ship. Yeah, and I've heard good things about My Shire Quail Farm, too. So that might be another source to check out. I simply recommend Kansas City Quail Farm because I've dealt with them personally. They sponsored a video quite a while back. So the birds that I have right now, they all came from Kansas City Quail Farm. I know Chicky Poppins comes in here, and I know people have had good luck with his birds too, so I recommend him as well. And but My Shire, I don't have personal experience with them, but I've heard good things about them. They get good reviews, and as far as I know, good customer service. Everything's great there, so should be fine. All right, Brandon says, can't wait. What are we talking about? Oh, can't wait for the birds to hatch. Sorry, I got distracted. Couldn't remember what we were talking about. Yeah, it's pretty exciting when your birds first start hatching. Every hatch is exciting to me. Every rabbit giving birth is exciting to me. I get kind of, it's like a kid at Christmas time. I get wound up, go out and check on them every 20 minutes. Have they started having their babies yet? Have they started hatching yet? And it's a lot of fun. The hardest part is when they start hatching, don't just go open the incubator right up. You need to leave it closed at least overnight. Give them at least 24 hours for all the birds that are going to hatch. And when you do, before you open it, look through the window the best you can. Try to make sure they're all, for the most part, dry and fluffy. Open it up, get them all out as quick as you can. Close it back up and see if any more will hatch. That's the hardest part, is not opening the incubator up and getting them out early. All right, so Tiffany says, when you butcher your quail, do you eat some hens too, or do you always keep them? No, I eat hens pretty regularly. What I'll do this year, like the quail that I have right now, all my breeders, they were hatched last spring, so they're a little over a year old. So at some point, probably, it might be a month or two from now, but at some point, one of my grow out sets, when I have a good hatch rate and I get a large number of hens or whatever, I'll throw them in at about 6 weeks old, and then I'll take out just as many hens, and I'll butcher them and I'll eat them for dinner. So I replace my breeders that way. So hopefully that makes sense. And yep, Chicky Poppins is SC certified, NPIP, AI clean, and shipping nationwide. Can't ask for anything more than that. Tell us what kind of quail do you have? What breeds? I shouldn't say breeds. What kinds? And I'm waiting for the answer here. We'll see. All right, we've slowed down a little bit on the chat though. Let's see. Jumbo Pharaoh. There we go. Jumbo Pharaoh Caturnix. Those are pretty good. You can't beat that. That's my favorite. That's my standard. Is if you want good meat producers and good egg production, Jumbo Pharaoh's the way to go for sure. I do like my silvers. I keep some silvers on hand and a few tuxedos just because I think they're cool. But if it was just all about meat and egg production, the Jumbo Pharaoh is the way to go. The great thing about Jumbo Pharaoh is you can just look at them and tell which ones are roosters and which ones hens. So I mean, these guys are 2 weeks old, and I can already tell which ones are roosters and which ones are hens. Let me grab one out of here. I'll show you what I'm talking about here. Hang on. I'll be right back. All right, hopefully this shows up on camera okay. Here's a 2-week-old bird right here. This is a Jumbo Pharaoh, and this is going to be a hen. It's got a speckled chest right there, so it's going to be a hen. You can easily, you can just look at it and tell. Very easy to tell. Let me see if I got a rooster handy. I'll show you the difference. Where are the roosters? Well, this may be more work than I thought. Where are they? Well, looks like I don't have any roosters, so I can't show the difference. Well, not any jumbo brown roosters anyway. I've got some silvers in there and some, they may be roosters, but I can't tell on them. I got to wait till they get to sexual maturity, about 8 weeks old, start crowing. All right. All right, where are we at here? Maverick says, just looked at Chicky Poppins. Great, might order, but it's too many quail for me. I only need about 10. And you're going to have a hard time ordering just 10. And I would honestly suggest on ordering eggs, not birds. Live birds, shipping can it can cause some issues with them where they stunts their growth, some of those kinds of things. You're better off probably ordering eggs, but you probably want to order, if you want 10, you probably want to order 20 or 30 eggs. Just eat the extras. If you get more than that, hatch out. But you never know what your hatch rate's going to be like. So, just ordering 10 eggs, you may only get 1 or 2 birds. You're probably not going to find anybody that's going to ship 10 eggs either. So that's kind of tough. Anyway. All right, Chance says, what age do you call the laying flock? I don't really, it's not hardcore, like, at this certain age, the birds all get called. I try to replace them about once every year and a half, maybe 2 years. 2 years is not, that long. It's not that big of a deal. So sometimes I might wait, like even these guys, I may wait. I said, I may replace some of them in a month or so, but I may wait till the end of the season when they stop laying and just the last meat run that I grow out, those become my breeders for the next season. I don't know yet. We'll just see how it goes. But I would say, 2 to 2.5 years at the most is about the time you want to replace your breeders with new ones. All right, where are we at here? I'm losing track. Okay, okay. Tiffany says we have jumbo meat makers from James Marie Farms. Those are very similar to the jumbo pharaohs. They're almost identical birds. They just tend to be more geared towards growing fast and becoming, heavier birds. Whereas the pharaohs tend to be more. They do that as well. There's not a huge difference, but the pharaohs do have larger eggs, not hugely larger, but slightly larger eggs. So there's that. Alex says, my buck won't breed, but the doe is willing to breed. Is your buck overweight? That's generally the issue with a buck, or he's too old, one of the two. But generally when you got a buck, if he's, less than like 3 years old and he won't breed, it's because he's overweight. So you may, I don't know how much you're feeding him, but just feed him like, I just feed like a cup of food. It's like 8 ounces of food really a day. Just as much as they'll clean up within 24 hours. If there's food left over when I go to feed them the next morning, they get a little bit less. They only get as much food as they're going to eat within 24 hours, and hopefully that helps. That's my best bet on that. Christopher Stone says, hey Chris, how's the garden doing? Just got mine going and have about 22 2-week-old quail growing out. Well, you're right about with me. I got about 22 2-week-old quail going. Well, there's not much to the garden yet. We kind of talked about that just a little bit ago, but I do have, I've got some cold season crops out there. If you've been watching my videos, I didn't cover them. We got some hard freezes. We got, some snow and all. But you know what? Some of them are still doing okay. They're not growing super fast because it is still pretty chilly at night here, or getting down pretty chilly most nights. But the romaine lettuce is doing great. I've gotten a little bit of a harvest off that. Had a couple of salads. The spinach is doing pretty good. We'll see. The cabbage looks like it might produce some of it. I lost a few plants. Brussels sprouts, I don't think any of them are going to make it. I think they all got hit too hard with the frost. So anyway, other than that, warm season crops are going and they're all doing great. Got tomatoes and peppers in the other room. Got some peppers and some basil up here. It's all doing great, but it'll be still a couple of weeks yet before that can go out. All right. Harshman says, I'm salty. I didn't get a notification. Maybe you mean I'm sorry. I think that's a typo, that's autocorrect or something like that. But hey, if you are salty, I don't know what that has to do with anything, but who cares? It's okay. If you didn't get a notification, no problem. Don't stress about it. I'm not offended if you don't make it to the live broadcast. It's okay. All right, Armed American. Hey, Chris, have you ever had Flemish giant rabbits? And if so, for me. I've never had purebred Flemish giants. I've had Flemish New Zealand mixes. That's one of the does I've got right now. The one thing about Flemish Giants purebreds is they are great big rabbits. They tend to grow out a little bit slow. It takes more feed to get them up to weight, and they also have a higher bone to meat ratio, so you don't get as much meat off of them in proportion to their size as you would another breed like a New Zealand or a California or a Silver Fox or some of those others. All right, all right, where are we at here? Boy, the chat just kind of took off there for a second. Okay. Christopher Stone says, I also have jumbo meat makers from James Marie. James Marie's a good bloodline, and jumbo meat makers are great. Brandon says, you said in your video up to 3 days right from when they start pecking out of the eggs, right? So the eggs don't shrink wrap around the other birds trying to get that out. Is that right? Yeah. Yeah, you can let them go up to 3 days. You're probably better off a little bit less than that. 24 hours is no concern whatsoever. 48 hours, I wouldn't worry about. I do it all the time. But I do try to get most of them out by 48 hours. Generally, I've left them in there up to 3 days and no problems whatsoever. But I've also left them in there up to 3 days and had a bird or two die in the incubator. But yes, it's so you avoid shrink wrapping them. And really what it comes down to is, as long as there's no birds that have pipped their shell when you open the incubator, you don't really have to worry about it. If they haven't started to hatch, then, like I said, after 24 hours, everything's dried off. It's hard to see through the glass in the incubator because it all fogs up. But if you can see the best you can, look through there, see if you see any pip holes in any eggs. And if you don't, open it up, grab all the birds out real quick, and close it back up, and you should be okay. But if you have to go 48 hours because there's still some birds in there that have hatched that haven't fluffed out, don't stress about that. Go 48 hours, no problem. And if you absolutely have to go 72 up to 3 days, it's okay. You can do that as well. All right, Armed American says, typically most people can expect a 75% hatch rate from most quail. They're messy breeders. By messy, I mean sloppy. Roosters tend to B and B fall off easy, I guess. Yeah, I usually get better than a 75% hatch rate, and of course a lot of that depends on if you're experienced with incubating or not. I mean, there is a little bit of a learning curve. It's not incredibly difficult, but if it's your first time ever incubating, I wouldn't expect a 75% hatch rate. There's a little bit of trial and error in there, a little bit of just learning it. Most of the time it's learning not to do it, not to mess with them too much. I mean, pretty much just leave them alone. And when you first start incubating, you tend to want to, open the incubator all the time, do all kinds of, and that really probably affects your hatch rate more than it helps. But anyway, my point is, when you first start incubating, you're probably going to have some issues before you ever get it right. Don't stress about it. I got some videos on it. It shows you how to do it. Go back to my homepage, check them out. They'll walk you right through it. But don't expect 75% the first hatch. All right. Alex says, my buck is not overweight. He might be a shy buck. It's possible, Alex. I'm not sure. Hang on just a second, guys. I got to get a drink. I'm not sure. I've seen, if your buck is not performing and because he's shy, so to speak, I'd get another buck. It's incredibly rare for a buck that's not overweight to just not be interested at all. He may be, I don't know how old he is, but that would be my other guess. If he's just too old and he's just no longer breeding age, that may be it. But bucks are generally just ready to go. I mean, as soon as you throw a female in there, she hasn't so much as hit the cage floor and he's on her, So it's rare. And if you have that problem with him and it's not because he's overweight, then I would look at getting another one. All right, Bailey Boys says, I got a bad mom bunny, killed 3 out of 7 kits. First time mom, should I give her another shot? First time mom, are you sure she killed him? She may have killed him inadvertently, like stepping on him, those kinds of things. And first time mom, I'd always give her another shot and just see. I had a rabbit one time that first litter, she lost all of them, every single one of them. But then never again did she ever lose another kit. She took care of everyone after that just perfect. The doe that I've got right now, the Flemish New Zealand cross, only had two babies her first litter. Both of them died. This litter, she only had 2 babies. But man, she built the most beautiful nest. She pulled more fur than I've ever seen a rabbit pull. Just lined it. I mean, it was just gorgeous. Both those babies are doing just fantastic. So yeah, I would give her another chance and see how she does. All right, Isaac says, you said in a previous video that you now stun your quail before butchering them. Can you explain that a little bit? Oh yeah. I do that, and that was actually a suggestion from a viewer that said that instead of just snipping their head off, knock them on the head first to stun them, so it's a little bit more humane. I got to thinking about it. I said, you know what, you're probably right. So that's what I started doing. I've got I don't have one in here, but I've got a screwdriver. It's just a long screwdriver, nothing special about it, but it makes a pretty good club, so to speak. So I grab them, make sure they're looking away from me, they don't see it coming, knock them on the back of the head, and then immediately snip the head off. And it does seem to help with the nerves a little bit, kind of twitching a little bit. Makes me feel like maybe they're not suffering nearly as much anyway, so that's why I do it. All right, Vaughn says, I got 19 2-week-old quail and ready for gardening. Planted a bunch in cold frames today. Boy, I tell you what, that's the hardest part for me is I'm ready to get out there in the garden. And boy, some days it just feels like, spring is here. It's 75 degrees. My wife actually... she went to, we have Sutherland's around here. I don't know if everybody has that or not, but it's kind of an outdoor, kind of a lumber store, like a Lowe's or a Home Depot, kind of. But they do a lot of garden stuff at this time of year, and they have their early bird sales. And this is probably the most frustrating thing in the world for me for all the big box stores. It's not just them. Lowe's, Home Depot, Walmart, Sutherland's, all these places. You go into their store right now, it's 75 degrees outside, and you think, all right, it's spring. You go in, you see their plants, the tomato plants, pepper plants, cucumbers, cantaloupe, all these warm season crops out. They've got them all out there ready to sell. They say, plant them now for a great spring or summer harvest. And it is way too early to be putting that stuff out in your garden. Way too early. We've got at least 2 to 3 more weeks before we're going to be able to put that out, before we're out of the dam. I mean, we had frost last night. So anyway, my wife went to Sutherland's sale a couple of weeks ago, and she bought, several plants, not overboard, but she did buy several. Well, they've been sitting on the kitchen table. I mean, we got them out the last 2 days, have to bring them back in at night, put them back out, bring them back in. So it's not a total waste, but still it is a little bit early to get that stuff out there, but boy, I'm ready to go too. All right, Christopher Stone says, we got a freak snow in South Carolina last fall, and I had kale that was covered for days. No kidding. They're all still standing still and producing kale like crazy. Amazing. Yeah, a lot of that stuff like spinach is really cold hardy. It does pretty well. Even gets covered with snow. Kale is very cold hardy as well. I personally don't like kale, so I don't grow any of it myself. But it's very cold hardy. So a lot of that stuff, you'd be amazed. Onions and garlic, it doesn't matter. They'll grow no problem. You don't have to worry about them. But yeah, a lot of your greens, those are going to be the things that grow really well in the cold. Oh, Harshman, I get it. Salty means grumpy. You're grumpy. Okay. Sorry I missed it. I understand now. All right, Taylor says, how much should I worry about rats trying to get my quail or rabbits? It's never happened to me, so I don't worry about it. We have rats. We don't have a huge amount of rats, but we do have rats. And, where I live, I don't live out in the country, but there is, my back lot's kind of wooded. I have a groundhog that lives back there, an armadillo that lives back in there somewhere. I've seen, some deer come across the back fields, the back lot right across the ditch. Had a turkey one time, a wild turkey come through there. We get raccoon and possum. So we have rats. I've never had a problem with it. They've never gotten any of my animals. So I wouldn't worry about it. Unless you start seeing problems, I wouldn't stress about it. Joe says, 15 litters of bunnies right now. Oh my goodness, that's a lot of rabbits. So, hope you can keep up with them. Timothy says, last week you mentioned your dog would probably not kill a bird if it caught one. Unfortunately, my rat terrier got a hold of one of my call hens last week. She is a sneaky brat. Well, that's a rat terrier. That's what they do. That's what they're bred for. My dog is part pointer. So he's, pointer pit bull mix. And he loves birds. Loves them. He goes out. He wants to chase them. But when a quail gets out, he goes and chases it down. And he doesn't kill it. He killed one, but not like he didn't bite it and kill it. He just holds it down. Just holds it there. And tries to bring it to me, and he brings it to me, and it's still alive. I put it back in the cage, but I think it had gone through much shock, and it died about 2 days later. But yeah, he doesn't kill him, not instantly anyway. He's a little rough, but he's not like trying to kill him. He doesn't grab him, shake him, nothing like that. All right, so Armed American says, sorry that was a typo. I run a higher hatch rate, but I say 75% for shipped eggs to be safe. Yeah, I think you're right on that. I had several eBayers quote 90 to 100% hatch rate. I don't know if 100% hatch rate, I think I'd call their bluff on that and say they're lying. But, who knows? Or maybe just trying to brag. I don't know. 90%, even that's pushing it a little bit. But yeah, I would say with shipped eggs, 75% is probably a good bet. All right, do you ever incubate and wet hatch? I get the highest hatch rate from chicken and quail eggs in a cabinet incubator by dry incubating and wet hatching at 65%. I'm sure there's plenty of opinions on it. Now, that's about what I do. I did several videos and talked about that, but I've been experimenting with dry hatching. It depends a little bit on the time of year. So in the wintertime when the humidity is way down, I do have to add some water to the incubator during the incubation process. But I always shoot for 65% humidity whenever it goes into hatching. In the summertime when the humidity is fairly high outside, I dry incubate them. I don't even worry about adding water until they go into lockdown. And then I don't add a lot of water. I just fill like maybe 2 of the trays to get it up to 65%, and that's it. All right. Brandon says, you might not get this, but when you put your baby quail on paper towels in the brooder, water, and a drinker with marbles, do you put food in a feeder or just on the floor? Okay. Oh, excuse me, guys. I got to take another drink here. Talk for almost an hour straight. I get a little bit hoarse. All right. Yeah, when I put yes, I usually just dump it on the floor. Sometimes I use a feeder, and it's just a standard, long red, the standard with the holes on the top, and they just climb in there and eat. That kind of a feeder, because it does kind of keep the floor or the mess off the floor. This time I didn't go clean it out, so I just dumped it on the floor and let them have at it. But you waste a little bit more feed that way because they do tend to kind of kick everything around. They make a mess everywhere. And now, especially, for the first week, it's not bad. But after about a week and a half, it's getting to where you have to clean the brooder box out pretty much every day. So you end up having to take all that nasty food and it gets thrown away every day. So I do think, you can do it either way. They don't eat that much. But, yeah, I do like the feeder a little bit better when they get up a little bit older. Hey, Kathon, how are you? Coming in here real close to the end. We only got about a minute or two left. I'm going to have to get this closed out. All right, where are we at here? Is it best to hold off on transplanting tomatoes into bigger pots with these cool days we've had? It depends on what you're starting them in. Now, I start all my seeds in sterile seed starting mix. And in that case, then whether you're planting them in bigger or the same size pots or whatever, you do need to replant them at about 10 days or start fertilizing, one of the two. I prefer just to replant them into a potting mix that has compost or worm castings or fertilizer in it, and repot them into a bigger pot. So go ahead and do that. Don't worry, don't wait, because they need to be fed at that point. All right, 1 or 2 more comments here, and then I got to get this thing wrapped up. Go spend some time with the family. Michael just caught the last minute. Hey, no problem. I'm glad you made it. Brandon wants to know about paper towels over pine shavings. I like paper towels better. It's easier to clean up. You might get a little bit more, last a little bit longer with the pine shavings, but I like the paper towels. I find it's just easier to clean up. It doesn't get kicked into the water dish. It doesn't, I just like it better. All right, one more, Isaac. I have 12 Coturnix quail that are about 1 month old now. All of them are from the parents. I want to start another batch of birds, but I'm a little too worried about inbreeding. What are your thoughts? I wouldn't worry about it too much. If you are, just eat all your roosters and breed your hens back to the rooster. Breeding father to daughter, you really don't have any problems with that. It's really brother and sister where you start introducing that stuff. And in quail, it's not that big of a concern, but that's the way I would do it. Eat all my roosters. Throw the hens in with the other rooster, let him fertilize eggs, and then you've got more birds coming. And at that point, you're starting to split out the genes just a little bit. You might look at going to getting some new blood in there about maybe once every 1.5 years or 2 years or so. Somebody says Sedalia, Missouri. I saw that come up. That's not too. It's a little ways from me, but it's in Missouri anyway. 3 does and 1 buck. Still have not completed their housing. I'm going to Sedalia, Missouri next month for the rabbit show. I'll be buying a New Zealand blue. Nice. If it wasn't too far away, I might drive up there and check it out, but it's a 5-6 hour drive, I think. All right, guys, I got to get this closed out. Thank you so much for joining tonight. Appreciate it. Took us a little bit to get going, but I think we had a pretty good live broadcast tonight. Again, next week, don't know if I'll make it or not. I will do my best, but I will be in the Dominican Republic. Still trying to learn Spanish, so I don't expect to really be able to talk.